Okay. Oops. All right, so today, you're going to see this in a second. We have a beautiful orange, it looks like it's dyed, Stallion 1K. We've got a lovely new piece of JEDIMESH. This is going to a very close friend in Ridgefield, Connecticut. So that's why we've got orange, we've got black. So here we go. All right, so this is a atypical in that I think STX is, to my knowledge, the only company that has 7 hole scoops. So because it's a 7 hole scoop, 7 hole scoops are perfect for like a 9 diamond top string, a 9 diamond Liberty top string. So I won't do an 8 diamond anything because it just automatically, for regular 9-10 diamond mesh, I'm doing a 9 diamond. It looks perfect. It's the holes match up really, really well. So let's just get this going. Again, this is not a tutorial on how to do it. Obviously, I'm trying to show, but I'm not going to talk through all of the steps. I just want to string this stick and bring you along for the ride. So as with all of at least my Liberty top strings, I am basically doing the tie off in the second hole down of the sidewall, making sure that's really tight. Now I've got 7, there's 9 holes here, but I'm going to be going through 8 of the 9 holes. And it's kind of, I remember I kind of shift what I'm doing here. So I go back to front through the mesh, front to back through the scoop. And it just, the number of holes lines up perfectly. That it's just, I'm doing, on the shifted part, as you can hopefully kind of see here, I'm doing every other. Going in that direction, I don't need to keep everything tight. I'm going to go all the way over here and kind of affix it to the other sidewall before I tighten anything. So after I go through, I'm not going to go through, this is number 1, I'm not going through anywhere in hole number 9 yet. Going back to front through that, the equivalent hole over here in hole number 8. I'm going inside out through sidewall hole number 1, outside in through sidewall hole number 2, and then I'm going to double loop, not tightening yet, but I'm going to double loop through hole number 2. So I go outside in through 2, front to back, outside in through 2, front to back, outside in through 2. So now I've gone through those folded over, I've gone through there twice, and back inside out through number 1. Now I'm not going to do anything with this. I don't have a whole lot of string here. As you can see, it doesn't go very far. Now is when I tighten from the start. And I just slowly work my way 1 hole at a time across. Not only am I trying to get the string tight, but I'm also trying to pull it so you can see the string is pulled a little bit in that direction. Trying to make sure I stay out of the frame here. Now that I've got this tight over here, now without letting all of this stuff come undone, now I'm still trying to keep everything tight, and now I'm pulling, that's 1, hole number 9 up to the plastic itself. And this is one of those times where we thank God for friction. Because if I keep all that tight, it's going to loosen itself up a little bit, but I can just keep it tight because I double looped and I kept all of that nice and tight. I can I don't have to hold that anymore. Now, as I'm going back this way, I'm not going to do it loose. I have enough string that I can kind of keep it loose, but I'm just going to do 1 hole at a time, pull it semi-tight, and then pull it tighter. And then I'm going to keep tension, in this case with my left hand, shout out to Penny Strings, who mentioned the other day that I think he said you're not a professional stringer unless you string on a shaft. I don't understand how. I genuinely, I do not understand how you can string everything extremely tight. I know there's people out there who use dark magic, who can figure out ways to string, top strings and sidewalls very tight using only one hand and keep it tight. I don't get it. I don't want to get it. I don't. I found a way that works, and I think it is superior, but I don't want you to change. If you found a way that works for you, keep doing that. This way works for me. I think it'll work for you. So as you can see, we've got a real, this is one of the reasons why I love stringing Stallions and Surgeons with 9-diamond Liberty top strings, is because it just looks so good. All right, so now that I've got that nice double loop. So I didn't really double loop finish. So here's the double loop start on this side. Here's the double loop equivalent on that side. That's kind of a single here. I just double loop finish on sidewall hole number 1 on the same side that I started. Hudson, you shush. That's my dog. I kind of double loop finish there just kind of for redundancy's sake. Okay. So now, pulling out my sidewalls. This is a friend who sent me this a little while ago, so I didn't have him sign in. I don't have an order through my website, but he wanted Midhigh. Got it. I think because I did a Midhigh in that previous tactic. As I said, like, I have seen what I call a mid-high be higher than what most people call high. And I've seen a lot of people who are like, oh, here's a high pocket. And it's like a mid-low. A high pocket, what I would categorize as a high pocket, which is not something I string very often. And by very often, I mean I've done 2 or 3 ever out of thousands and thousands of heads of what I would say this is a high pocket. A high pocket is, it's closer to the scoop than it would be to a mid. And like mid-high is right between where you, like the middle of the pocket is a mid-pocket. The ball's sitting in the middle of the functional use of the head. A mid-high is halfway between a mid and the top of the scoop. So something that's high may not necessarily be touching the plastic, but it's significantly and noticeably higher than a mid-high. Okay. So this is a perfect example of how to, maybe I'll cut this into its own separate video. This, if I've done a 9-diamond top string with 8 9-diamond mesh, which is what JEDIMESH is, how do I then start my sidewall? Because on most, if I'm doing a 9-diamond top string with 9 10-diamond mesh, which is most types that we see out there, uh-oh. All right, we're going to press pause. We'll be right back. So as I was saying, if I'm stringing 9 10-diamond mesh, I'm typically, even with a Liberty top string like I just did here, or my top string, I am folding over 2 rows of mesh. So I've got a 9-diamond and a 10-diamond row that are doubled over. If I've got 8 9-diamond JEDIMESH, I just did a 9-diamond top string. The next row down is an 8-diamond. I am not going to try to, you can already see here that like this is the 8-diamond row right here. or sorry, this is the next 9 diamond row. The 8 diamond row is noticeably inside where the 9 diamond row is pulled to on each side. I'm not going to pull the 8 diamond row further down or further wide. So what I'm going to do in this case, and this is what I recommend for you, is, and this is dependent upon the head, where I start, how I do my sidewall in this case is dependent upon what head I'm using. The reason why for that is different heads have different number of holes in different places. Some heads, I can tie these even closer to the scoop. Some are even further down. The wider the head is and the further down the first 1 or 2 holes are, it changes what I'm going to do in what head. And it should help you consider and shape your pocket and decide which top string is going to work for you. So in this case, because the first few holes in the sidewall for a Stallion 1K are noticeably longer than the rest of them. And so I am going to double loop start my sidewall, but I'm not going to go around any mesh. So in this case, because these holes are so big, I have the room to double loop. I can single loop, I can double loop. It kind of depends on how big these holes are. Make a little aglet. Just stiffen up the first inch of this string. So in this case, let's see if I can get a double in there. May not. I may just be a single loop start in this case, but I like doing the double for redundancy. It's more because I always do it. But even though I try to cut all of my strings here, you can't really see it. I try to cut all of my strings about 2-3 inches. The rule is 2 inches or less. You see a lot of people that have 3 inches, 4 inches, 5 inches. It's not a rule that I've ever seen, even remotely administered. But part of the reason why I started doing the double loop start so many years ago is because what happens in the unlikely chance that I have to untie this knot, the knot that I used to start or finish one of my sidewalls, and let's say the person who I strung this for cut these strings even shorter. If I've double looped, that means I can untie one of the double loops, make it a single loop, and I've got more string to work with to retie. It's very frustrating to have to repair a head, and the customer or the player has shortened how long, shortened the string that was hanging on their sidewalls. So in this case, I'm happy the holes are big enough that I've gotten this piece of 275 cross-laced to go through this hole 4 times. Actually, I guess 5? Yeah, 5 times. So as you can see right here, this is my double loops on each end of the top string, and then you see my double loops that doesn't go around any mesh. That is my double loop start on both sides for my top strings. And so as I did before, here we have the actual sidewall itself. I'm going to string down this sidewall first, talk through a little bit about what I'm doing. Okay, to finish off my conversation about how I start my sidewalls with 8/9 diamond Jedi mesh. So I've double loop started my sidewall, not going around the 8 diamond row of mesh. So from here, I'm just going to start my sidewall. I'm still going to use 10 rows of mesh, but I'm going to use 10 rows starting with that next 9 diamond row. So I'm going to use 10 horizontal rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 throughout the course here. But I'm not, instead of doing my top string on a 9 diamond row and starting my sidewall on a 10 diamond row, I did my top string on a 9 diamond row, starting my sidewall on the next 9 diamond row. I'm just using 9 diamond rows all the way down. So as per usual, I'm going to do a couple of I'm going to do inside to standard. Now, even though the tension in the mesh here makes me think I should do 2 inside weave SIs adjacent to one another, it's not necessarily, I'm not going to do them going through the same hole, but I'm not going to skip a hole. This is going to be a bit of an experiment. If I have to go back after I'm done to restring it, I'll go back after I'm done and restring it, because performance is number one. And it's not right until it's right. So there's enough tension here that I can see in how far I've pulled the mesh down a little bit that there's the mesh underneath the scoop is not going to be loose. Ugh. So we are going to try. I don't think I've done this pocket in this head before. And as I've mentioned, when I do, I'll typically do a couple of inside weave SIs or double inside SIs to start. I'll do one side a little bit. I'm just going to do it on the other side so I have the equivalent amount of tension. At least in the first few inches of the mesh underneath the scoop. I don't want it to be tight. I don't want it to be very tight. My goal is to everything to be as tight as possible or extremely tight. If you notice, I have not put on any, I haven't put any tape on my fingers because it's early in the day. Okay, so I am going to try to figure out how to, I'm going to do ones. I'm going to do ones for the rest of the way down until I've gotten to, I do a 1 through number 8, tie off another knot, 9, 10, out the bottom. I want this to be a mid-high pocket, but I also want it to be very functional as going to a high school player. So if somebody wanted something that was like even a little bit higher or a little bit more delay on the release, I might throw like a 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, something like that in there. But I think this is still going to be high enough. Doing it just a whole bunch of ones before finishing off with a 2, going down to the bottom. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Probably could have put a 2 in there. We'll see. This might be more of a mid-high pocket than a true mid-high. We'll see. So that's right now. I'm thinking. So I've used. That's my top string. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to go through 8 in between those two, and then 9, 10. We'll see how high it is. I'm committed at this point. I don't want to undo it, and for the sake of the video, I don't want to spend all the extra time. So anyway, we're gonna go through all the way to the end, and that'll be the video. And if I have to change it after, I have to change it after. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 9, 10. Outside in through this sidewall's closest bottom string hole, inside out through the very bottom sidewall hole, and then I guess a single loop finish through the very bottom down there. Keeping it very tight, making sure that that knot, even if I'm pulling out like this, that knot is still touching the plastic. This looks good so far. Okay. So now to just copy it. So I'm doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 knots in a row. Or K1s, knotted ones. Notice before I tie all of my knots, I'm making sure that the mesh is seated where I want it to seat. When I kind of start tying the knot, I'm keeping everything pulled back towards the top of the head. Then when I have it tied up here, then I really wrench down that way and tighten it. I want these knots to be tight in a year. After 1 year of regular play, I want to go back and be like, still tight. That's the goal. Because if it stays tight for a year, it's going to stay tight longer than that. Okay. Oh, God, I love this stuff. Doesn't look like it's going to be mid-high, does it? Well, we're going to find out. Don't need to do aglets for a bottom string. So I'm double looping one side of the bottom string, or I'm double knotting. I'm going to go inside, so I double loop start, or single loop start through the next bottom sidewall hole up from the bottom, inside out from the closest bottom string hole on the far side from your view. On the 10th row, I'm going to go front to back, back to front, front to back, back to front, outside in through. If this is hole number 3, that if I started with inside out through hole number 1 of the bottom string, I'm going outside in through 3, inside out through 2, front to back through that same hole. I've got 7 holes horizontally to work with. So go front to back through 1, 2, 3, 4, back to front, front to back, back to front. So I weaved in and out of 7 holes horizontally on a 9 diamond row, going through the same hole only once in the very middle, outside in through 1, 2, 3, bottom string hole number 4, going in that direction towards the camera, and then a single loop finish, one hole up from the bottom sidewall hole on this side. Let's see, unless I'm really copy and pasting, I'm going to leave myself, hopefully you can see, like there's a bunch of room. I've got, half an inch, not quite 3/4 of an inch between where the mesh is and the bottom of the plastic. I have room to pull it down if I need to. If I don't need to pull it down, I don't need to pull it down. Okay, so now that that's done, hopefully you can see in the camera over here. So remember, I should say, that is what it looks like before being pounded. And that is what it looks like after. Not as mid-high as I originally wanted, but higher than a true mid. It's a mid-mid-high, but again, a mid-mid-high is probably what was originally, it's probably what this young man probably wanted. And it's a beauty. Okay, so I am going to just let's find some shooters. Oh, I don't like those. Oh, this is a goalie shooter. I should save that for later. Let's go. Okay, so I've got 2 shooters, and as I've shown you before, it's just a little bit easier, in my opinion, to turn it this way, because then I can just, it makes it a lot easier to quickly bang out my shooters. Again, if I have to use one of my hands to hold on to this, hold on to the head, it just, I don't know how, I don't want to know those dark ways. How people do an awesome job stringing with one hand tied metaphorically to the head, not right behind their back. Okay, here we go. So I've got these. I like how it is. I can just feel going like this, how, you know, shooters are made to be adjustable. I double knot, or I do 2 single knots, not a double knot, just because I know so many players just don't pay attention to how tight their knots are. And if I put in 2 single knots like this, it's a lot less likely that it's ever going to come undone. Let's just finish off real quick, make everything look pretty. For years and years, I never understood how people kind of made their, you can't even see it. I am so sorry. How people had their shooters kind of, 2 shooters that were cut together are kind of melted together. It took me a long time to figure that out. Not performance enhancing or detracting, but there we have it. A mid-high, oh, come on, get in the photo. A mid-high, mid-high, not quite a mid-high. Stallion 1K with JEDIMESH. Hope you like it. Any questions? Shoot them down in the comments. Keep stringing.